a quiet neighborhood in Enfield, North London. It's 1977, and the Hodgson family, a single mother, Peggy, and her 4 children, have just moved into a modest council house. The family was hoping for a fresh start, a new chapter in their lives, but they had no idea what dark, unexplainable horrors awaited them in that house. It started with the strange noises. It was just past midnight when Peggy heard a loud banging coming from her daughter's room. At first, she thought it was the kids fooling around, but when she got to their room, her daughters were sitting bolt upright in their beds, eyes wide with fear. The noise continued, relentless, coming from the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. It was as if the entire room was alive, breathing with an energy they couldn't see. As Peggy comforted her terrified daughters, she suddenly noticed something even stranger. Janet's bed was moving, not a little shake, but slowly sliding across the floor. Peggy tried to push it back, but the bed moved on its own as though an invisible force was pulling it away from her. Her heart raced. She grabbed the children and rushed them out of the room, afraid to even look back. But the terror was far from over. Over the next few days, the house became a nightmare. Doors slammed on their own, objects flew across rooms, and chilling cold spots would appear, making their breath visible in the air. Desperate, Peggy called the police. When they arrived, she explained everything. They were skeptical, until they saw a chair in the living room slide across the floor by itself. The officers stood frozen, watching as this empty chair moved like something was dragging it. But there was nothing. They were at a loss. What could they do against something unseen? The story of the Hodgson family and their haunted home spread like wildfire. Investigators, reporters, even curious locals flocked to the house, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious happenings. And among them were 2 paranormal researchers, Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. They were experienced in the supernatural, but even they were unprepared for what awaited them in that house. As soon as Grosse and Playfair entered, they were greeted by a barrage of loud knocking sounds, echoing all around them. And then they saw Janet, the 11-year-old daughter, go stiff. Her eyes rolled back, her mouth opened, and out came a voice. Not the voice of a young girl, but of a grown man, deep and guttural. He said his name was Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in that very house. Bill's voice spoke of how he had gone blind, how he had suffered, and how he had died, all while using Janet's body as his vessel. This voice was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Even when Janet drank water or when her mouth was examined, the voice kept going, speaking in disturbing, eerie tones. It didn't sound like a child pretending. It sounded real, too real. Grosse and Playfair recorded hours of this possession, listening in horror as the voice of Bill spoke about his life and death. The haunting got worse. Peggy would hear heavy footsteps when no one was there. She'd find things moved or broken, and on some nights, Janet's bed would levitate, lifting into the air as she screamed, helpless against whatever was taking control. They even managed to capture photographs of Janet seemingly floating in midair, her face twisted in terror. These photos were eerie, as if Janet was being thrown by an invisible force. Skeptics argued it was just a child playing tricks, but those who were there, they knew it was something much darker. After months of endless torment, the Hodgson family was pushed to the brink. They tried everything, priests, exorcisms, anything that might rid them of this presence. But the activity only continued. Neighbors and friends stopped coming by. Even the police said there was nothing more they could do. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the haunting stopped. It was as if whatever had tormented the Hodgson family simply decided to leave. The house fell silent. But the memories remained. The horror, the fear, the feeling of being watched never truly left. Years later, Janet would still say that much of it was real, though some people would never believe her. Some would argue it was a hoax, but those who witnessed it, those who heard the recordings and saw the photographs, they knew something unexplainable had happened at 284 Green Street. Something dark, something terrifying. And to this day, If you ask anyone who was there, they'll tell you one thing. There are places where things live just out of sight, things that wait in the darkness, places where the dead never truly leave.